Hi guys, welcome to Chit Chat Tuesday. It's a dark one today, I'm afraid, but I feel like it's important to keep sharing. I'm not going to keep talking about the case today. I'm focusing on Kevin Frankie and also the background of how Jodi Hildebrandt came into their lives. There are no graphic pictures in this. There's no pictures of the kids or anything like that, because I feel like it's been shared enough. I don't need to share it. If you want to see it, it's readily available online. But I've watched hours and hours of footage and I can't get my fucking head around how a mother could do this to her own kids. It's a million times worse than what I thought when it first came out. Like, they said the kid was found with wounds to his arms and his legs. I was thinking, like, superficial cuts, but these wounds are bone deep almost, infected, and must have been absolute hell living with that, as well as going through with all the torture. If you want to read about all that, you can find the Ruby Frankie diaries online on Reddit. She's an absolutely evil, sadistic bitch. And I just hope that these diaries are read out at every parole hearing that she ever has, and she stays in jail for the rest of her life, as well as Jodi Hildebrandt. I'm including them both in this, because it's one of the worst cases of child abuse of modern times. And I've no doubt that if they'd have managed to buy this property that they'd wanted to buy, that we wouldn't be looking at a child abuse case now. We'd have been looking at a murder case. If this kid hadn't have escaped when he did and got help for him and his sister, it's just unfucking thinkable. This kid's a fucking hero, and I just hope now these kids get put into care where they've got a new family, away from the Mormon community, away from all these pillars that have failed to protect them, and people with masses of experience in child psychology, because these kids are going to need such a lot of fucking help. These kids are messed up for life if they don't get the right help. So yeah, I hope they get the privacy they need. That's the last I'm going to talk about that case, but I'm talking about the backdrop. So let's get into it with this week's Wankers of the Week. So this week it goes to not only Kevin Frankie, this absolute piece of shit father who allowed his children, who he is supposed to love and care for, he allowed the two monsters that are Ruby Frankie and Jodi Hildebrandt to take responsibility for them, knowing full well that they were fucking batshit crazy. He believed Jodi Hildebrandt to be surrounded by evil, which we'll hear in the tapes, and he thought she was possessed, yet he still allowed his children to be taken under the care of his wife and Jodi Hildebrandt. I'd also like to extend the Wankers Award to the whole of their family who didn't help these poor kids, because I'm not fucking having it that they didn't have some inkling of what was going on. It seems like the only person in these kids' family who tried to help them was Sherry Frankie, their older sister. This college student tried to help them multiple times, and it's like she's the only one who gave a fuck about these kids. But today we're talking about how Kevin Frankie failed his kids, so we have to start at the beginning, from when Jodi Hildebrandt was introduced into the family's lives. So she started out, she was introduced to him as this counsellor who's supposed to be amazing, and she was helping the oldest son. But she seemed more interested in talking to Ruby, according to Kevin Frankie.
Her theory was, if you want to help your child, you have to help yourself first, and then you'll know how to help the child. So she spoke with Ruby frequently, and the frequency of their communications ramped up. And then the first conversation that Jodi had with Chad was in June of 2019, while we were on a trip to the East Coast. All of her visits with Chad were virtual through Zoom. But she would talk with Ruby on the phone or through Zoom quite frequently. So Jodi met with... things got really... It got strange around the fall of 2020. The Hannahs were trying to convince and bring Ruby into into this organization called Connections, and that particularly were focused on things like lust versus love and healthy marriages, happier marriages. Into this.
So this is when they started the YouTube channel Connections, which is like the beginning of the end. I think it's like the start of this cult.
She invited me to go to it was like a conference or something held at Thanksgiving Point in Lehigh. There were like 100 people there, and that was in the fall of 2019, maybe late summer of 2019, late summer 2019. And my impression at that time was this is absolute craziness. This is a bunch of man-hating women that are just looking for excuses to tear down their husbands. And I mean, that's what it felt like to me when I was.
So here he's openly admitting he thought that the Connections cult was crazy. They were just man-hating lunatics, according to him. Yet he still welcomed her into his life and into the lives of his children and his wife. So long story short, between Ruby and Jodi, they convinced Kevin Frankie that he had some sort of porn addiction. So he was working on that, and then his marriage seemed to improve. So he thought that Jodi was some sort of messiah after that. Dickhead. This was the same time that their YouTube channel 8 Passengers went downhill. So it was like a big change in the lives at this time. One day Ruby came to him and said Jodi was having problems at home. And could she come and stay with him? Because she's having like problems with possession or something. It gets really fucking weird from here. Apparently they were like poltergeists or demons in... It's not funny, but it is, you know. Jodi's house was apparently haunted, and so she wanted to move in with Ruby and Frankie for a while she dealt with these demons that were affecting her life. Bear in mind through all of this that Kevin Frankie is an educated man. He's an engineer, he's a teacher. But he's been so easily manipulated by this woman. It beggars belief, it really does. So this is what he said to the police. This is after Jodi moved in with them. And weird things started happening around the house.
Lights turning on and off. Sounds like people walking in walls, and like sounds like footprints going up walls and across the ceiling, and then like stuff floating around, and it was weird, and I hated it. And I became the resident exorcist. That was the title I came up with myself. I thought it was kind of funny, but it was my job to like go and give her blessings whenever she started to like go into a trance and go into possession, and which started to be a lot. And Ruby would go up and check on her. It started like every 4 hours a night, and then it moved every 2 hours a night, then it moved every hour at night, and then at some point Ruby said, you know what, I'm just going to start sleeping in there, and if I need you, I'll come down and get you. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but okay. And that was that. They started sleeping in the same bed.
So just to reiterate what's happened so far, Ruby and Kevin Frankie, this Mormon couple, highly educated, very wealthy, they was introduced to Jodi Hildebrandt to counsel their son. Jodi told him that Kevin had a porn addiction, caused loads of trouble in the marriage, then magically fixed the marriage, and then she told him she was haunted and she wanted to move in with him. They've allowed her to move in with him. Now somehow she's ended up sleeping with his wife. Like they're sleeping in the same bed so that Ruby can help her when she gets possessed during the night. Are you hearing how crazy this sounds? This educated man doesn't think this is absolute ridiculous craziness. I understand that it's possible to brainwash anybody, but he sounds just as fucking crazy as them at this point, that he's allowed it to get this far. Don't forget his kids are living in this house too.
Then she started having like trances and stuff. I would say probably September, where she believed that she was going to heaven and seeing God and Jesus and talking with him.
So now she's gone from being possessed to going into these trances and talking to God. Really? Honestly, it just gets more and more fucking bizarre from here.
When she would go into possession mode, she would talk in like different voices. It was really creepy. But the voices would say, she's ours, we're not letting go. She is Satan's bride. She's mine. I'm going to marry her. You know, so if she was faking it, she believed that she was trying to, or Satan wanted her as her bride.
So anyway, time went on while all this was happening. Jodi was still managing to convince Ruby that Kevin was no good, this and that, he's got this addiction to porn and blah, blah, blah. And she eventually convinces Ruby to tell Kevin to move out, which he does. He agreed to move out and have no contact with her or the kids for a full year. Knowing that all this has gone on, knowing how fucking batshit crazy Jodi Hildebrandt is, at this point he believes that she's being possessed. But he's happy to leave his wife and kids in their care. What sort of father does that? I understand that he'd do anything for his wife, but sacrificing your kids in this way is absolutely despicable and unforgivable, in my opinion. From what I believe, before his full year started, he had to do a month of not talking to anyone, and this is what he said about it.
But I can't describe to you what torture and hell it was to live an it was more than a month really, in complete isolation, believing that I was like evil and, I mean, manipulative and lying and selfish, and
Oh, poor you. You as a full-grown adult did this by choice. Yet your kids were subjected to this exact treatment for a full fucking year. These poor innocent kids. You're not the victim here, Kevin. You're as bad as them. You left your kids for a full year in the care of these two women, not actually giving a fuck about those kids at all. You were just bothered about fixing your marriage to Ruby and doing whatever she fucking said. You didn't ask about them. You didn't check on them. You have allowed this to happen. And you should never, ever be in custody of these kids again. I'll be absolutely disgusted if you gain custody of these children. Because you don't deserve them. Yes, you was manipulated and brainwashed, I'd say. But that's not an excuse. Your duty here was to be a father and you failed. You failed fucking miserably. And even when it all came out in the first police interviews, you weren't even concerned. You wasn't asking about the kids. You were just bothered about Ruby, and that just speaks volumes to me. I'm going to end it here because I'm just getting myself worked up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have not been too affected by the goings on. And we can all just thank God, or whoever you believe in, that the son of these demons escaped and saved him and his sister. And now they're safe and well. Or as well as can be, considering. I hope to see you soon. Bye.